Hello. Hello, everybody. Oh gosh, we've got over 2,000 from all over the world joining to Draw the Fox today. Give me a thumbs up and say hello if you can hear me, please. I'm so excited. I'm so excited about today, honestly. We are doing something a little bit different. We're drawing the fox all together, or we're starting the fox all together, and then you're going to be getting the rest of the fox as well over the next few weeks. So brilliant. It's so lovely to see so many people who are going to be joining in with me. Honestly, it's so exciting. I get so excited about all of this. We're going to have a fabulous afternoon. I know there are lots of people who have never done a live stream with me, or maybe you're new to colored pencils, and all I want to say is please don't be scared. This is just me. You can see there's no beautifulness in what I do. You can see my studio. We're here. I am just here to have a lovely time. That's all I'm here for, and to help people become creative. And you know, if you're starting and you're like, oh, I don't think I can carry on doing this, it's a little bit quick or something like that, then just put your pencils down and just watch, ask questions. I've got members in the team in the chat who are going to be able to ask questions. Vicky as well will send me questions so that I can answer questions as well when I'm drawing. Now, we're going to get as much of the face done as possible today. What's going to happen is I'm going to send you the replay from today. And then I'm also going to send you the actual, because I've already drawn the fox. So I'm going to send you the first part as well of the replay, which will be slightly different, just in case, you know, we don't get as far. And then I don't want you to miss out when you get part 2 and you're like, well, we didn't do this bit. So I'm going to try and make everything as simple as possible for you. The session is going to last for a couple of hours. Again, please don't worry. You know, if you need to drop out, that's absolutely fine. You can kind of dip in, dip out. You're going to get the replay. The replay is not on a timer. So once you've got the replay, it's yours. We're not going to take it away from you. And then next Sunday, you'll get part 2. The Sunday after that, you'll get part 3. And the Sunday after that, you'll get part 4. You'll also hear from me midweek with some little tips. So if you want to carry on drawing your fox, I've got some little tips coming for you as well. And then the other really exciting thing is that, you know, all of the 2,500 and growing people who are here today will get the chance to join me on another session, which is a troubleshooting session on the 8th of April. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring up the link throughout the session. Vicky's going to pop the link into the chat as well throughout the session. And because what you'll have to do is you'll have to sign up for it, because it was just a little bit tricky to sort of work out who everybody is and who's joined live. So when that link comes up, then you know, if you just copy it and take it into your internet provider and then sign up for it, and then you can join me on the 8th for a troubleshooting session. So that troubleshooting session will be, you know, oh gosh, I really struggled with this part of the fox, or oh, I really struggled with this, can you help me with this? And then you know, I can help you in real time, which would be great. So we're going to make a start, because we have up until sort of 6, just after 6, to draw together. So I'm going to make a start. I'm going to bring my foxy onto the stage here, and then I'm going to spotlight that for you. And hopefully you can still hear me. Give me a thumbs up or a yep, or I can hear you in the chat. So, oh, there we go. And we've got the little fox picture there as well. Okay, so I'm going to move over to my drawing board. Also, what's going to happen is I'm going to talk about the pencils that I'm going to be using. And they will also appear on the screen for you. So if you didn't hear what I said, or you're sort of missing something, as I'm using that pencil, they're going to pop up on the screen for you. So this is what we're going to be doing today. As you can see, it's not enormous. I just want to show you, oops, this is the finished one. So this is what we're going to be drawing today. So that's what we're going to end up with. And then you're going to get all of the rest of it over a few weeks, which is really, really exciting. And I haven't done anything like that before. So we're going to start with the black. Now mine is quite sharp, you can see there. It's quite a sharp black because the eye is really quite small. You can see how small that eye is. We're not trying to create enormous details here. We're trying to create depth. We're trying to create, you know, life, all of that kind of thing. So please don't worry about going full on with the details, because we're not going to be doing that. So I want you to get your black, and we're going to hold it sort of gently, but so that you've kind of got hold of it. We don't want it flopping around in your hand. And the first thing we're going to do is just do the outside of the eye. So I'm going to come up around the top bit here, very, very gently. Can you see that? I'm just going really nice and gently. I'm not kind of drawing a big black line around the fox's eye. And then I'm just going to come around the bottom here. Now, I know we've got the line art here, but it just really helps to start somewhere. You know, it's just really helpful. I'm just going to put that onto there. And then I'm just going to bring that up here. So I've got Vicky. I've put myself on mute. So Vicky, you can get in touch with me. Maisie, if you need to get in touch with me, you'll have to go via Vicky, because I won't be able to see your messages. Okay, and then we're just going to come along the top bit here, and we're just going to bring a little sort of tiny sort of smidge, and we're going to go into sort of sketch mode here. Can you see how I'm just kind of going backwards and forwards with my pencil there, just to bring that little bit of the corner of the eye in there. And I'm going to just fill in this top bit here. Now, if you've put your line art on the paper and you're starting to get like a little bit of an outline, which is very, very common, you know, where maybe you've just pressed a little bit hard and it's indented the paper a bit, please don't worry. It's something that I do all of the time, and it's just one of those things. But because we're going to be putting more colour on, we're going to be able to get rid of that. So it'll be fine. So don't sit there thinking, oh gosh, I've done something wrong or anything like that. You'll be absolutely fine. Okay, a little bit more on the corner here. And then we're going to use our dark indigo. So that's the very dark blue. It's here. It's number 157. Okay. It's a very, very dark blue. And we're just going to bring in, can you see that little bit of the pupil inside? I'm just thinking, I don't really want to zoom in too far because I want to kind of keep this in the screen. But you can just see the sort of like a little bit of darkness, almost like a line. And we're just going to kind of bring that bit of a line in here. Now, again, this is very small. So we're not looking at creating like a ton of detail in the eye at all. There's just no point, because we're going to be looking at the whole thing. If you look at my one, the one that I did before, and you look at the eye there, you can see it's not highly detailed at all. And actually what we're looking at is all of this gorgeous fur and everything. So we don't need all of that detail. I'm only saying this because I know some people get a little bit panicky, you know, that things aren't sort of quite right, or, you know, they need to get a lot of detail in, and we don't need to do. So the next colour that we're going to use, because we're just going to fill in the eye area there, is the cold grey 2, which is number 231. And that's one of the polychromos colours. This bit here, it's not, one of my animals hasn't bitten it. That's from my pencil sharpener, just saying. And there, now what we're going to do is we're just going to fill in that, the iris part of the eye. Now you can go over the top of the blue that we've already put in there. And actually it's quite a good idea to do that, because it sort of smudges it. Can you see how it's gone over there? It's kind of smudged it a little bit. And then I'm going to bring that blue into the corner of the eye there as well. So now I need to go back to the black. So we're going to go back to that polychromos black. And we're just going to start to then just refine the edges again, because we've gone over the top of it and sort of smoothed it and lightened it with that cold grey 2. So just going to come over the top there. We're just going to bring that little roundy bit. So it's all about shapes. Always just concentrate on shapes when we're initially kind of putting things together. If you concentrate on the shapes, you can't go far wrong at this point. There's going to come a point where I say, right, stop concentrating on the shapes now. But at this point, we're all going to just concentrate on these little sort of shapes. And I'm just going to bring a little bit more black in there. We can then use the darker indigo again and just darken that middle bit again. And we can bring a little bit of that very, very, very gently in over the top of the cold grey that we put in before. And that is basically your eye. That's it, done. We don't need to revisit that at all. And then we can start working on the fur. So dead quick. Normally we're used to just drawing an eye in a couple of hours. But you know, it's so tiny. As long as we've got the shape correct, that's all that matters in this one. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start on one of the scariest parts of this little fox, and that is the ear. And, you know, I totally get when people say, oh, gosh, the fur, it's a bit scary. You know, how am I going to get it to look furry? Well, I'm going to show you. And it's not nearly as scary as you think it's going to be. So I've got my kneadable eraser here. I use the Faber-Castell one. I've got one in a box here. So this is my little kneadable eraser that I use. I only use this one. It's the best one. I absolutely love it. And it's kind of squishy. And it works brilliantly with pastel mat. It works brilliantly with a hot press paper. It's just a really great little eraser. Now, it's not going to erase everything, but, and I do apologize about the shadows as well. We're going to just dab out some of this line here so that we don't end up with these big, strong lines where we don't want them, particularly where it's a little bit light around the top here. So we're just going to bring that in there. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off, I think, with the dark sepia. It's number 175. Okay, and we're just going to bring a little bit of that into the darkest bit of the ear here, and we're going to use like a sketching motion. So you can see I've got my hands that are quite far back on the pencil. And I'm just going to come in here and I'm just going to sketch. So just very, very gently, backwards and forwards, we're just going to kind of create that shape that's in the little fox's ear there. So we end up with this sort of fuzzy, dark shape. In there. Trying to kind of, if you can see the hair growth, where the hair's, the direction that the hair's growing, try to get your pencil to go in that same direction. But to be honest, at the moment, it doesn't really matter. Just nice and gently. We're not kind of holding our pencil up here and really pressing hard. We're going nice and gently, just sketching that little bit of dark in there. Okay. And then we're going to do the same around the edge of the ear here. So we're going to come in here. We're just going to just gently bring a little bit of that dark colour in along the edge of the ear there. And like I said before, you know, if you're like, oh gosh, hang on, wait for me, I can't do this. And then what I don't want you to do is sort of feel really, really fed up and then stop completely. What I want you to do, if you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed, maybe you're thinking it's, you know, going a little bit speedy, best thing to do is put your pencils down, grab a cup of tea, watch, ask questions in the chat. And then when you get your recording, which will be tomorrow, or actually you'll be able to go straight back into the recording using the same link, you can then pause it and do something, and then pause it and then do something. So, you know, but just being here live with all of these people is pretty special, I think. You know, so don't disappear and you know, do anything crazy like ripping your paper up and put it in the bin. We don't want any of that. You know, so you can wait for the recording and then you can pause it and draw it at your leisure. You know, I don't want anybody panicking about stuff. So we're just, again, just very, very gently sketching in that little bit of the dark area of the ear here. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to bring in, I can't remember what I did with the first one that I drew. So I'm actually going to use my warm grey one, the 270 in the Polychromos range. Now, if you're thinking, what's that weird thing on the end of my pencil? That's actually from the dog's poo bags, and it's a brilliant pencil extender. So I've got a lot of my pencils in these little bags. It's brilliant. And again, we're going to hold our pencil quite far back, and we're just going to gently bring in the lighter fur that's coming around the ear. So we're going to start on the edge here, and we're just going to very gently backwards and forwards. You can see the direction that the fur is growing in. And what I want you to do is try to come over the edge that you've drawn. So instead of going right up to the line that we've got, just try to just let your pencil just lift over the top of it. So you end up with a gentle stop rather than a hard line. And we're just going to gently, gently just sketch in. Again, I would like you to come in and over the top of these dark areas here. So you're just going to bring your lighter pencil in over the top. It will lighten it, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. It will actually sort of smooth it a little bit, and it will start to blend it out. So we're not going to be using anything for blending apart from our pencils and possibly a little paintbrush or a cotton bud. That's all we're going to be using for blending. And I'm just going to come through into here. So you can see my pencil strokes have changed because the hair growth is kind of going up there. And then the hair growth is kind of coming down this way. Doesn't matter that you can't necessarily see the pencil strokes, but it will matter when we put the other colors on the top, because it will kind of fall and follow what you've already put down. So I'm going to come into here. Just nice and gently. We don't want any heavy pressure. And we're going to be doing some nice layering as well. Coming through there. So this little shape here is actually a strong shadow, which we're going to put in a second. And then we move up and we've got some of that sort of yellowy colour in there as well. So I'm going to bring some of that in too. And then we've got this little bit in there. So I'm going to use my warm grey one in there as well, which is great. And I'm going to bring a little bit of that warm grey one into there too. So we've now got the base of that ear in, and it might look, you might look at it, well, you probably will look at it and go, this is looking really terrible. And that is very much part of the process. So if you've never used coloured pencils before, part of the process is you getting used to your drawing looking really bad in the beginning, because it's impossible for something to look beautifully realistic without adding all of the layers in. So, you know, you just get used to it. It's just like, yeah, this is just the process, and it's absolutely fine. Okay, so our next colour that we're going to use is the raw umber. So this is the Polychromos raw umber, and it's number 180. Okay, and we're just going to use that. There's like a little bit of a pale brown colour in here, and we're just going to use that very, very, very gently. So again, holding it sort of quite far back so that we can't put too much pressure on it. And we're just going to gently bring some of that colour in. Now you might, when you put your hand, or when you start to put the colour on the surface, your pressure might be a little bit too much. So it might go down a little bit too strongly. Don't worry, you know, if you're like, oh gosh, that's a bit strong, just get your kneadable eraser and just dab it over so it just lightens it up a little bit. That's all you need to do. But also, because we're layering, we can lighten this up by bringing other colours in over the top. So whatever surface you're working on, you know, you can use these techniques that I'm giving you here. If you're working on drafting film, which I know some of you are, just be careful that you don't, you've got to plan it a little bit better, because you can't get as many layers in. So you might need to just sort of plan yours a little bit and go in a little bit quicker with the colours. With pastel matte, because we're trying to build the colour up, it's better if we put multiple layers in, whereas with something like drafting film, it's better if you've just got a few layers, you know, sort of say max 4 or 5. So that's just something to sort of have a think about. Okay, so I'm now going to come, I think that's all okay. Let's bring a little bit of the orange up into here. So I'm going to start with my burnt ochre, the Polychromos burnt ochre, or any sort of earthy orange that you've got, and it's 187. Okay, and again, we're going to do exactly the same thing. I'm just going to lift a little bit on the top of the head here. we're going to do exactly the same thing, and we're just going to bring some really, really gentle pencil strokes in here. We haven't finished the ear here at all. I'm just blocking colour in at the minute. It's quite nice to sort of block the colour in around the area, and then we can start to sort of, you know, fill all of the bits in and bring a little bit of detail in. So we're going to bring this dark area in here, and then we're going to bring some sort of brighter oranges up there as well. So you can see I'm using very, very light pressure, following the direction of the fur. It's going to look rubbish. We know it's going to look rubbish, but by the time we're finished, it's going to look amazing. And this is very much the part of colour pencil that I think people get a little bit dismayed with, because they see all of these beautiful finished pieces and then they start to draw with colour pencils and they're like, well, hang on a second, I must be absolutely terrible because mine doesn't look anything like that. And the only reason it doesn't is because you haven't given it enough time. So, you know, but when somebody says to you and tells you, then that then becomes easier, and you can kind of then think, oh, well, hang on a second, I'll just keep going and persevere a little bit. So we've got all of this bit down here. We've also got this dark, we're going to have a dark shadowy area in there as well, but I don't want to bring the dark shadowy areas in until we've got enough layers down. The direction of your pencil needs to be the direction that the fur is going in. So I'm going up and down here on a little bit of a curve, because that's how the fur is growing. I can see it's growing out of here, up and round. So if you don't do anything other than follow the direction of the fur, you're still going to end up with a really lovely drawing. Because, you know, the direction of the fur is also going to be very much around the structure of the animal. Okay. Right, so next what we're going to do is I want to darken this, but I also want to pull a little bit of the hairs out here, the details here. So I'm going to use my kneadable eraser. I'm going to put it into like a little point, and I'm just going to bring some of those little areas down there. They're going to look rough. They're not going to look like perfect little hairs just yet, but we're just going to bring those in there. And then we're going to start to actually create some detail and bring a little bit more depth into this here, because at the minute it looks very flat. So we're going to take our dark sepia again, the 175. Okay. And we're going to darken this area here. So I'm going to add a little bit more pressure, and my hand is also come a little bit further up the pencil shaft. So I'm just going to be a little bit more specific now about where this pencil is going, and I'm going to be a tiny bit stronger with my pressure. So the color that you should be getting on the surface now should look a lot darker, but I'm not using really, really, really strong pressure. I'm also still going backwards and forwards, because that's going to add a few layers at a time. So I'm not just doing one stroke like that. I'm going backwards and forwards. That way I can get like a softer lay down, and I can get a stronger color coming through, but I can still keep that sort of delicate softness that we want. Because we're drawing fur, we want to create the quality of the fur. We want it to look soft. We don't want it to look harsh and, you know, with sort of straight, strong lines. We don't want any of that. So just by darkening this little bit in the middle, we can now see how dark the rest of the ear needs to be. And this is really, really important, because when we look at the ear, you're probably thinking, oh, it looks white. You know, how am I going to get white to show up? But actually, it's much darker than we anticipated. So we need to kind of bring the darker colours in. So I want to use my warm grey 4, and actually a little bit of... No, I'm not going to use the warm grey 4, sorry. I'm going to use my walnut brown, which is number 177. Okay. And we're going to use this very gently to kind of come in where this dark area is here, and also pull a little bit of detail coming through into these hairy bits here too. Now, it doesn't have to you don't have to make it exactly the same as the photograph. You know, we want this to be your fox. So I'm going to start here, and you can see again, very, very gently, I'm just going to bring some of these little sort of details in. So we're starting to darken this little bit here along this sort of left-hand side of the ear. it kind of gets a little bit darker as it works down here, and you get some of these little shapes. So again, it's very much about sort of that sketchy feeling, working down here. I'm going to get a little bit of that brown in there. The brown doesn't want to be as dark as this area here. This is the darkest bit here. But we just want to bring a little bit of that in there. Now it's going to look grainy, and that's fine. You know, we don't need to worry about it looking grainy. It's just one of those things, and it will look grainy on, you know, if you're working on hot press, you're going to get some tooth coming through. If you're working on pastel mat, you're going to get the tooth coming through. So, you know, whatever you're working on, apart from drafting film, you're going to get some kind of tooth coming through there, and that's okay. And then I just want to pull some of these little lines up here, in here, and then we're just going to come down, and we're going to bring a little bit of that dark in there as well. So if you're a little bit worried about smudging, I think a lot of people get a little bit worried about smudging. I haven't, but you should have a piece of something underneath your hand. So I normally use a piece of glassine, and I just put it under my hand. But also you'll see when I'm drawing, I don't actually move my hand around. I'm more moving my fingers. So if you're somebody who moves your hand around a lot, you just need to be a little bit careful not to sort of smudge everything. Just coming in through here, and we're going to bring a little bit more grey into there as well. And we're just going to build this ear up really nice and slowly. Your inner voice is going to be telling you all sorts of things. Mine does. You know, mine is I've trained mine to be sort of quite kind, but even now when I'm sort of just starting a drawing, my little inner voice will be just telling me, you know, start again, it's rubbish. You know, and it's just one of those things that you just have to ignore. You know, you can't listen to that inner voice, not at this point anyway. You know, if we were 3 hours in and I was still working on the ear and it was still looking a bit, you know, forlorn, then yes, we might start again, but it won't be. It'll look amazing. Okay, so we've got that brown in there. It's now starting to take shape a little bit. We're starting to get a little bit in here. We're starting to get these hairs coming through. We can see where we need to bring some more idea of depth and everything. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick with my walnut brown, and I'm going to move up, and I'm going to bring this little bit of a shadow into here. We've got that little bit of a shape. So rather than drawing a block, again, I'm going to just follow the hair and the growth of the hair. I'm very, very gently just going to sketch in that area. And then I'm going to sketch in this other little area next to it. But I'm drawing the shadow, not the actual bit of hair sticking out. So I'm just drawing the shadow. So it's like working in negative, if you like. We're just drawing the shadowy bits rather than drawing the hair that's around it. Just bring a little bit of that walnut brown up there, and then I can bring a little bit of shaping onto this bit here, and then we can also bring a little bit of the shadowy bit in here as well with that same walnut brown. We've got a bit of color on there, and again I'm just going to bring in an idea of those little shadowy shapes. Now if you can keep them soft, great. If what happens is you end up with it looking a little bit sort of like big, strong marks, don't panic. You know, you can soften them as you work through, but if you can try and get them soft to begin with, you see how we've got these little lines here, and we're going to have these a lot of these in the chest area. If I was to go like that and just draw a line, it looks a bit harsh. So instead, what I'm doing is I'm going in and I'm creating the shape, but I'm doing it in a really soft way. So I'm just going backwards and forwards, a little bit like how the hair would sort of grow. So we're getting these really nice, soft little shadows in here. And I can bring some more into the area under the ear here. And I can bring a little bit of that walnut brown. I can bring that into the back of the ear here as well. So we're starting to get an idea of where the neck starts, but obviously the ear is sort of sitting onto the head. So I can just bring a little bit of that dark in there as well. So these initial layers and how I draw it's sort of quite sketchy to begin with. And I like that because it just brings a little bit of life into the piece. You know, it just gives it a little bit of movement, which I think is really lovely. Okay, so let's now bring a little bit more of that burnt ochre. So the 187. And I'm going to bring a little bit of that onto the edge of the ear here. So I'm just going to bring a little bit of that into here, just very gently. Now, with your pencils, you know, whatever pencils you've got, if you press hard on them, you're going to get a strong color. If you press gently on them, you're going to get a diluted, you know, form of that color. So you've got all of these different variations of the color in between. And that's why it's so important to practice your pressure. So again, I'm going to come over this area here with my burnt ochre, and I'm just going to gently, gently bring a little bit of that orangey color in. So we've got sort of 3 different colors in this area here. We've got that raw umber, we've got the walnut brown, and we've got now a little bit of that burnt ochre in there, which is really nice. And then I'm going to come back up to here, and we're just going to bring a little bit of that burnt ochre. I'm going to pull it over this dark area that I've created so that everything is connected. So we haven't got sort of blocks of colour that are just sitting on their own and not connected to anything else. Everything's sort of blended together, if you like. And then I'm going to bring a little bit of that orangey colour into here as well. And then I'm just going to bring a little tiny bit. I'm going to bring probably a little bit of cream, the Pablo cream, into here at some point. But I also want to bring this bit in here. So I just want to see how, you know, show how the hair is sort of changing direction. You can see it's going up and then it starts to move and it goes almost horizontal here. So we're just coming into that bit, and then we can just kind of pull some hair into here as well. Just sketch those bits in too. I think when people think about realism, they think that we're, you know, sort of sitting and drawing tiny details all of the time. And actually, for a lot of the time that you're drawing, it is quite sketchy. It's more sort of blocking colours in and getting everything in the right sort of place. Okay, so I'm now going to take my kneadable eraser again, because we've got more colour. We should be able to get a little bit of the idea of hairs in here. The more colour you put down, the more likely it is that you're going to be able to get an idea when you start to pull a little bit of the pigment back out. And I tend to use my erasers as a tool to actually put highlights in rather than rubbing stuff out. Which is just a really natural way that I found to draw. So I use my eraser a lot just to sort of help me do that. So I'm just coming into all of these little areas and just pulling out some of these little hairs. Coming up here. Now, when it comes to picking colour, it's quite a personal thing, but it's also something that happens over time. And the more you draw and the more you look at things, the more you'll be able to sort of recognize the colors. It's the same with everything. The more you do, the more experienced you get. And I think the easiest way to pick a color is literally to hold a color next to your iPad or your printout and go, does that look similar? Yes, no. If it's a yes, use it. If it's a no, choose something else. And the more you do that, the more you'll start to kind of get an idea of how things are working and how the colors are working. And it just, you know, I think if you panic about it at the beginning and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, I can't choose colors, then you end up with this block. But I think if you're just like, you know what, I'm learning, everything's going to be fine, I'm just going to keep going and it will come in time. It will come in time. So, you know, just be a little bit careful about what you start to believe. If you believe you can't do something, then you won't be able to do it. Okay, the next pencil we're going to use is the first Pablo that we're using today, and it's the ash grey. Okay, number 401. And very similar to the warm grey one that we've used, but the Pablo gives a slightly different feel, which is why I've chosen those. And we're just going to come into the ear and we're going to bring some more of this hair in. Now, the Pablo is very velvety. It's still a hard pencil, but it's very velvety, and it works really, really, really well with polychromos and with your other pencils as well. They're a really lovely pencil. They're more opaque than the polychromos, which means that they've got slightly better coverage. And we're just going to come in. The other thing that they do really well is they smooth and blend. And on pastel matte, that's really what we need. We want something that's just going to help us smooth out some of the other colors, because you'll see if you're using pastel matte, you'll see quite a lot of grain. As soon as you start using your Pablo in over the top of what we've got here, you'll be like, hang on a second, that's looking good. You know, it's starting to blend out, which is lovely. So I'm going to bring a little bit down here as well. I'm using slightly stronger pressure. Now that we've got a few layers down, I can just increase my pressure a little bit. It's always a good idea to start light. Start with really nice light pressure. Sometimes you don't know what's going to happen and whether you need to erase something or, you know, add a different color in or something like that. But once you've got to a point where you're like, yeah, happy with this, it's working, you can just start to increase your pressure just a little bit. And what that's going to do is it's going to push the pigment that you're putting onto the surface. It's going to push it into the surface of the paper. Then it's less likely to bounce back. A lot of the time when you're drawing, you know, you finish for the night, you're really happy with how things are going. You get up in the morning, you come and look at your picture, and half of the colours disappeared. And that's just because of the tooth relaxing. But if you start to then use a little bit stronger pressure, then, you know, you're going to push that pigment into the tooth of paper, and it's you're not going to have that happening as much. What you are going to find is that everything that you thought was the right sort of darkness or lightness is going to go all light again. You know, it's gone a little bit smushy. And that's okay, because now we can really start to bring out some of those details. So we're going to go back in with that walnut brown, which is the 177. And we're going to come into this area here. And again, we're going to come back in and we're going to add those little bits of color. Now, you might be thinking, well, honestly, what is the point? You've put this in before, you've then covered it up, and now you're having to put it back in again because you covered it up. And, you know, I know it's a really good question. It's just part of the layering process. You know, and if you do that, you're just going to get some really, really lovely results, rather than, you know, just sort of putting a couple of layers down with the right color. If you build it up, you're going to get much better results. It's going to look more realistic. Your colors are going to look richer. There's going to be a depth to your drawing. So, you know, yes, it can seem frustrating to begin with. And I have to say, when I first started drawing, I don't think I was the most patient person. I loved it. It was very mindful, but I was interested in just drawing details. So when it came to having to spend ages on, like, you know, I'd finished doing a dog's eye and its nose, or eyes and nose. And then I was like, oh, I've got to draw all of this fur now on its neck. And all I was doing was thinking about the next drawing that I was going to be doing, and all of those gorgeous details in the next dog's eyes and nose. And I've had to teach myself to be more patient, which is really, really, patience is important. And even if you're an impatient person, if you want to draw realistically, you can. You know, you can teach yourself to be a little bit more patient. And the thing is, once you realize how fabulous the process is, that's what you're going to want to do. It won't really matter what the outcome of your drawing is, particularly. Of course, I mean, it's lovely to have a really nice drawing at the end of it, but that's not why I do it. I don't do it for the outcome. I do it because of how it makes me feel. You know, and this is, I get this a lot from people who don't really understand about realism, you know, because they sort of think that we're just kind of, why don't you just take a photograph? But it's not about the outcome. It's about the actual process of creating. Okay, so now we're starting to get this really nice feeling on this little ear here. I want to darken up this edge again, and I'm going to take the black this time. I'm going to be really nice and careful, and just sort of bring the black in on the edge I'm probably going to smudge it a little bit as well. So I've got a very sharp black, and I just want to just be really careful when I bring the hairs in onto the ear. I just want to be really, really careful that we're just sort of bringing them in as a bit of a shape, and then I'm kind of pulling the pencil back out. So I'm putting my tip of my pencil on the edge of the ear, and then I'm just flicking it out. So we're starting to get an idea of these little hairs that are sort of coming off the edge of the ear there. Just flicking it out. If you're new to pastel mat, you might be sitting there in horror thinking, what is this terrible surface that I'm drawing on? And that is exactly how I felt when I first started drawing on pastel mat. When I first started drawing, I actually drew a lot on black paper, and then I sort of moved a little bit to hot press. It was the Stonehenge multi paper, I think it was called. And then I got into pastel mat, and I had to stop using it for a little while because I was like, I feel like I can't draw. It's the most horrible surface in the world. And then I went back to it, and then I persevered, and then I learned how to use it. I used pastel for a while, believe it or not, until I found out I was allergic to it. And once I kind of worked out the techniques, it then became my absolute favorite surface to work on. So it's worth persevering. However, nothing is ever worth making yourself miserable over, because what we're doing here is supposed to be having a lovely, joyous time. So if you're working on the pastel mat and you're thinking, this is just the most awful experience I've ever had, give it a go, but don't stop drawing because you think you've got to carry on using it. That's all I'm saying. There are lots of other surfaces that you can use that hopefully you'll kind of get to grips with. So I'm just pulling this in over the edge of the ear there. You see how nice that looks? And then we can use, I've got these little cotton buds that have a rounded end, and then they've also got a little pointed end. I've just got them from Amazon. And I'm just going to use the pointed end, and I'm just going to gently just sort of smudge the edge here so that everything sort of kind of connects. And I'm just going to kind of pull that out over there so that we've got that nice fuzzy edge there. Okay, which is great. Good. Okay, so now what I want to do is bring, what colour am I going to bring in here? I think I want to come onto the head. We are going to revisit the ear, but I think I want to come onto the head a little bit. So I'm going to put all of those pencils back, and I'm going to pick up my terracotta. So the terracotta is number 186, and that is like a really quite a strong orange. Okay. And we're just going to do exactly the same as what we've been doing here. We're just going to bring in a little bit of the orange. Now, what the orange is going to do is it's going to make this ear look very different. You might be looking at the ear going, oh, it just needs a little bit more color, blah, blah, blah. Actually, once we start to bring the orange into the face here, the ear is going to look different again. So we're going to start at the top of the head here. Again, I'm just going to bring my kneadable eraser there. I'm just going to get rid of a little bit of this line. If you've got a really stubborn line that you can't get rid of, you can use your magic tape. So if you've got, this is magic tape. It's got dog hair all over mine. And I'm just going to pull a little bit of that off. And we will be using this later on, but a word of caution about magic tape, always test it on your surface first. On pastel mat, it works beautifully. And if I've got an area where I'm like, oh, I really need to get rid of that, I can just sort of plop it in over the top and then draw on the top of it and just gently lift, and it takes away some of that line. It's a really, really fantastic little tool to have. And then we're going to take our terracotta and we're just going to start to build a little bit of the fluffiness on the head. Now, again, we're going to bring the hair over the top of that line. So we're not drawing right up to the line. We're getting this sort of soft fuzziness. Just be aware that there's sort of like a light area on the top here. So I'm just going to bring a little bit of that in there, but we're going to kind of keep that little eyebrow, light eyebrowy area there. I'm also going to come in over the top of the eye. Now, the hair above the top of the eye, you can't really see the direction it's going in. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do circles, and that will just give us a little bit of texture, but it will mean that we can't really see what direction the hair's going in. This is a really good trick for hair that's pointing at you as well. Just go in circles. Okay. So, and then we're going to come back out and we can see that the hair is sort of going in that direction there. And then we can darken this with our other colors as well, but we can just bring in areas of this color. But a lot of these lines we don't actually really need. And you can see where it starts to go a little bit yellowy, and that's where our lovely Pablo orangish yellow is going to come in. Okay, so I'm just popping this color in here. Now you'll notice that when I'm drawing, sometimes I spin my pencil around, and you'll notice this a lot. If you watch color pencil artists who do time lapses and they spin their pencil a lot, it can almost make you feel a little bit sick. And they're like spinning, spinning, spinning. The reason that we spin our pencils is so that you can end up on the sharpest point on the end of the pencil. So the reason I'm not spinning and turning my pencil at the minute is because I want to keep a very even sort of surface of color, even texture. And if I was spinning my pencil, what could happen is I could get a sharper bit, I could get a blunter bit. So I just want to keep everything the same. And I'm also just keeping my pencil on the surface at all times as well. And that really, really helps me with the pressure that I'm using. So I'm just going to come underneath the eye here as well, which is obviously going to have to be darker, but we can just, start to kind of block these little bits in here. Now, the other thing that I would say as well is, if you've got all of your colors to hand and you're seeing color, use what color you want to use. It's not a problem at all. If I'm using a color and you're like, I don't see that color, I'm going to use this other color, I would recommend that you go with your instinct. Some of you might be like, oh, I have no idea about color, so I'm just going to stick with what Bonny's got, again, which is fine. And if we go back to color as well, how I choose color, I think I have a thing for color. I think I'm quite good at picking colors, and I think I understand it. I mean, that's kind of, come from years of drawing now, but I also used to work in the print world as well. One of the things that I don't recommend, but of course, if you find it helpful, then do use it. So I don't ever recommend color picker apps. And that's because when you use a color picker app, you're picking a pixel. You're not sort of picking a, like the look and feel of your color. So you just got to be really, really careful with those color picker apps. The other thing as well is it becomes a little bit of a crutch. And, if you want to learn how to use color, the best thing to do is experiment. And that's what I did. I just experimented with my color and I just tried things. And I think as long as you have a basic understanding of color theory, blue and yellow makes green, orange and red. No, not orange and red. Well, orange and red will make an orangey red, but orange and yellow. What am I saying? Orange, red and yellow make orange. That's what I'm trying to say, because we've got our primary colors. I'm going crazy. If you've got and red and blue make purple. If you've got a basic understanding, which it sounds like I haven't, but actually I do, you can get pretty far. So you'll know that, I'm not going to use blue in my orange here because it's going to go a little bit green, because blue is blue and orange has got yellow in it. So it's things like that. Then you just experimenting is going to work really, really well. Okay, now what I want to do is bring in some an idea of the structure of this fox's face. And when we talk about structure, it's very much about where we see the dips, the curves, where something's rising up, where something's dipping down. So if you look at your fox's face, yes, there are lots of different colors, but we can see that, we've got a lighter area here on the sort of the cheekbone. It's slightly darker on the nose area here. It's darker anyway because it's a darker color, but it's even darker because there's a bit of a dip. Then when we come above the eye, we've got a lighter area just above the eye, and then it gets slightly darker there. These are what I would call values, and these are the things that I want to concentrate on the most, because these are the things that are going to make my fox look really realistic. So if I just kept on colouring in with this orange, he'd look really flat. And what we want to do is we want to make him look, you know, nice and realistic. So I'm going to get a couple of colours out here. We're going to use them separately, but I want you to get your burnt sienna out, which is number 283. Okay. And then I want you to get your Caput Mortem Violet out, which is number 263. So we're going to use the burnt sienna first, but then we've also got in our hand the Caput Mortem Violet, which is 263. Now, the Caput Mortem Violet is going to have a really lovely effect on the dark, on the terracotta. It's going to make it more of like a burnt orange. The burnt sienna is quite a strong colour, and used too strongly, it can look a little bit flat. But we're going to use it in some of these darker areas just to start to build a little bit of that structure. Now, mine isn't quite sharp enough, so I am going to sharpen that quickly. Excuse me. So that's just my electric sharpener that I've used there. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring a little bit of this burnt sienna out around the eye. So we can see it's a little bit dark around here. So I'm just going to round and round, start to bring in this dark area, which we can bring some black in over the top once we've sort of brought the other colours in. And I want to just darken underneath that little eye there as well, moving into that corner, you know, the bit where we first started putting that little bit of black in. And then I'm just going to bring a tiny sort of little bit of shading underneath. And again, I'm just going round and round. Now, my pencil's going down quite strongly. I don't really want it that strong. It's not looking that bad. I just want to lift a little tiny bit of the colour that's gone down. So I'm just going to dab my kneadable eraser on there. Sometimes it can, you know, as light as you go, it can, the pencil, this has got quite a lot of pigment. It's almost like, you know, when you've got an ink pen and it just sort of starts flooding and you've got like loads and loads of colour coming out. The burnt sienna is quite a pigmented pencil. So just be sort of quite careful. Once we get going, it'll be fine. Might have to bring a little bit more black into there for that little eye. But can you see straight away we're starting to get some structure in there, and he's starting to look a little bit more, hang on a second, you know, this fox is looking a little bit more real. And then I'm going to bring a little bit in here. Hopefully you can see where the fur above the eye and where the fur on the top of the head starts to change. The quality changes a little bit. And this goes from being sort of quite dense, short fur to being more fluffy and a little bit longer. So I'm just going to bring a little bit of that burnt sienna in there, bring it down here a little bit and sort of use it in some of these little shadowy areas on here. And then I want to bring in some of that Caput Mortem Violet as well. Let's just bring a little bit more of this burnt sienna onto the sort of the bridge of the nose. It's almost like in between the eyes here. Again, very, very gently. Now, please don't worry if we don't kind of get the fox's face finished in the time that we've allocated. I've got a whole video that I'm going to send you as well as this recording. So you'll get the first part that I've already pre-recorded. You'll get that at the same, you know, at the same time, or you'll get that tomorrow. You know, so don't think that you're going to be sort of left on your own. You won't be. Just clean that up a little bit there. So I'm just using this very, very, very gently. You can see my hand is way back again. This is the burnt sienna that we're using. And I'm just gently, gently just pulling in there. What we don't want is, we don't want a big straight line across his nose. You know, animals don't have straight lines. Or, you know, sometimes we get a really strong shadow, but we don't get like an outline. And what you might find is if you do add an outline, there's nothing wrong with that, but it will look more almost like cartoony, because once you start to add really strong contrast in that respect, then it can look a little bit, you know, less realistic and more stylized. And of course, nothing wrong with that at all. But if you're thinking, well, mine doesn't look very realistic, if you've got strong outlines around it, that's likely the reason why. So I'm just going to bring that burnt sienna kind of down here. You can see we've got some sort of grey areas here. We've got that little nose, which we're going to put in. So I'm going to use that Caput Mortuum Violet that I said to hang on to. So the number 263. And I'm going to bring a little bit of that onto the top of the head up here, just very gently, starting to bring in a little bit of an idea of the fur up here, where it's sort of slightly darker. Again, don't worry if you put it in and you're like, oh my goodness, it looks like he's got like a dark red Mohican. Don't worry, because we're going to be putting some more colour in there. I can just bring a little bit down here. I'm going to bring a little bit of that over the top of that burnt sienna. So just bringing some more information in there. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to add a little bit more over the top of that burnt sienna. I'm going to use the Caput Mortuum Violet in here. So mixing those two colours together is going to give us a little bit more of that depth, a bit more of that idea of that colour in there. I'm never overly fussed about capturing a colour exactly. I want the idea of that's all I'm sort of bothered about, really. So we're going to get that in there. And then we've got some sort of creamy colours going on there. Okay. So we're now going to use another Pablo, and this is the orangish yellow. This is number 031. And we're going to bring that into this little bit above the fox's ear here. And what we're going to do now is we're going to add a little bit more pressure, and we're going to start to kind of soften that fur a bit. So we're just going to come into here, working in over what we've got. You'll find that it feels like butter. They're really, really lovely, buttery soft. Well, they're not soft. They're still quite hard. But the lay down of your pencils is just lovely with the Pablos, really, really nice. And what we're wanting to do is create this sort of fluffy fur like this. Fluffy. So if I want to draw fluffy fur, I'm just going to go up and down to get that sort of soft, gentle fluffiness. If you're not sure about the direction that your fur is going in, then just go round and round in circles so that you get the texture in there, but not necessarily the the direction of the fur growth. This one you can kind of see the direction of the fur growth. It's working pretty well. And then we're just going to come down here as well. Again, where the fur is standing up and it's pointing at you, just go round and round in here. And then I'm going to bring a little bit around here as well. You can see that the lay down of the Pablo, you get a completely different experience with the Pablo. And, you know, if you're new to colour pencils, you might be thinking, oh, I don't know anything about pencils or anything like that. The best thing you can do is just to grab some different makes, try them out and just see what happens. See which ones you like. I like the hard, dry ones more than I like the soft ones, which is why I don't really use Prisma, because I don't like the soft ones as much. Not there's anything wrong with Prisma, which is, I prefer the harder ones. I prefer to be able to control what's coming out of the end of the pencil. I think that's what it is. Okay, so we're an hour in. We're just going to pop up a banner on the bottom of the screen, which is going to give you an ID. It's going to give you the address of what to use to get your little bonus for coming in here live. And then Vicky is also going to paste it into the chat. And what we'll do is we'll keep pasting it into the chat so that you can click on it and, sign up for this extra bonus. You'll get taken to a page and it'll just say sign up. And all that will do is it will just give me an idea of who wants to sort of come to that bonus session. And that is a live session with me on Zoom where you can ask me your questions about your fox drawing. You can bring your fox drawing with you. I can have it up on screen. I can go through things with you and I can help you with, some of the elements that maybe you're not quite sure about or you need some help with. So copy you can either write it down from the screen or you can copy the link that Vicky's going to sort of continually put into the chat, and you can go onto that landing page. So Vicky, if you can just keep popping that link in every now and again, that would be really great. Yeah. And the other thing I would say as well is, we've got another hour to go, which is brilliant. Again, don't worry if you're not keeping up, or you're sort of worried about anything. You're going to be able to get back onto this replay almost immediately. So all you'd need to do is you just click on the link that you got into here, and it will take you to the replay once it's up. And then we'll send you this replay in an email tomorrow, and the actual video that I created, the one that I did on the first, I think it took me 2 hours 15, and we got down to here. Okay, so Vicky's going to continue to put that link in, and then we'll pop that link up every now and again, and then we can keep going. So I'm going to keep going with my orangish yellow in here, and I'm just going to pull some of this color into here, which is a little bit bright, but I'm going to bring some creamy colors in over the top of it as well. But I just want to kind of pull this color in, so we're starting to get a nice idea about where these colors are sitting. So again, sort of, we can see a little bit of an idea of the fur, how the fur's growing, where it's coming from. There's no sort of rhyme or reason or specific rule as to how you should draw, what things you put down first. Usually with colored pencil, we do light colors and then build the darker ones on the top. It just kind of works out better. With pastel mat, you can put your darker colors in and work over the top of that if you want to do. To me, it seems more intuitive putting dark colors down and working to light. But with colored pencil, it's not. It's a little bit like watercolor. It's not always possible to do that. Okay, so we've got the yellowy color in here, which I think is looking really nice. Let's bring a little bit of this yellow into the ear here as well, very, very, very gently. We don't want to make it really yellow, but we just want to bring a little bit of that color in on here, a little bit down here. We've still got some work to do in that little ear, a little bit into there, a little bit into there. Also, don't feel you have to use all of the brands of pencils. You can just buy one set of pencils and just use those. What you'll probably find is that if you get into your color pencils, you'll want everything, and you'll just want every single kind of color pencil out there. Okay, so we've got a good coverage of pigment onto this little fox. Again, now we can start to build up. So I'm going to use my terracotta again, that orange, number 186. Okay, we're just going to start to bring in a little bit of almost detail into this first. We've got kind of blocking in those base layers. Now what we want to do is just start to bring a little bit of detail in. I'm going to bring a little bit more in over the top of the eye, very gently, just bringing in an idea of that color into there. Again, we're going a little bit sort of spiky, fluffy hair. Pastel mat, you might find you've got some weird little marks. It's just one of those things with pastel mat, unfortunately. Try to ignore, try not to get upset with it. The layering will allow you to sort of fill those areas in. And we're just going to come down here as well. I'm going to bring a little bit of that terracotta down into here. Now, what I'm going to do now is, can you see how I've just changed my pencil strokes a little bit? And I'm just doing these little single pencil strokes, but with quite a blunt pencil. And these are bringing in these little sort of marks that are going to become the texture of the fur around the eye. Probably bring a bit of a darker color in there as well. But I like to bring the texture in as soon as possible because it just really, really helps. So I'm just using these single little pencil strokes. And you'll see as we go through the fox and you start to complete the fox, when you get further down, you'll start to be drawing shapes like when we get down to the bits down here, you'll start to be drawing V's. So that's what your fur will be like. They'll be like V's on their side. So if you can, I find it really useful to sort of recognize shapes for something that I know. So if it's like a V or oh, that looks like an S or something like that. And then I put that in and build from there. It just really, really helps. So using the terracotta, you can see I'm just coming in. There's a little bit of a darker bit up there, a little bit of a darker bit up here. When we put that Caput Mortem Violet, I'm going to go in over the top of that as well. I'll use my little brush in a second and show you how that kind of helps with these fluffy bits. But what we've done is we've started to establish the base layers. It's almost like we're working from the skin out, and then we're working the details on the top. So you can see this is now starting to look a little bit more foxy and a little bit more fluffy. Some people like to kind of get stuck in with the detail straight away, which, you know, there's no wrong or right, and I'm never going to say that's the wrong way of doing something. I found that the easier way for me is to start off with the base layers, get the base layers in, get a few layers of colour in, and then your details are way easier to get in on the top, way easier. So again, I'm just going to use these little, can you see how I just sort of instinctively moved into those little single pencil strokes here? I'm just gently just using those little tiny marks. And that's really what the fur is just your pencil marks and how to get those pencil marks to look like fur. And a really good tip is, you know, checking the direction of the fur, checking the any angles, but also if there's a bit of a curve. So here we've got a bit of a curve. So we'd bring our pencil strokes in with a curve rather than it being a straight line. I know that sounds like you know, it should be just common sense, but you know, when you haven't done something before, it doesn't feel like it's common sense. And I can remember when I first started to draw, you know, and well, at that point I hadn't seen, because I wasn't sort of part of any groups or anything, but I was just drawing what I thought was right. And I'm sure a lot of you have seen one of the first drawings that I did, and there's no bone structure, there's no structure in it at all, but you know, I loved it and I thought it was great. And then as soon as I realized that actually this is what is going to make something look really realistic, is, you know, if I actually concentrate on these little tiny differences in the fur, that's what's going to make something look you know, really realistic. You know, I started to concentrate on those, you know, and I'd say it took me a while to then kind of really start to understand how you know, my methods could make it easier for me, and definitely with pastel matte, getting those base layers down, and only concentrating on the details at the end. You know, when you've got everything down, it just makes it way easier, way easier. Okay, I'm just going to bring a little bit of that orange through into here. Now, I do tend to work in sections, which is what we're doing here. But I also sort of quite like to block colour in as well. I think it's quite helpful to block a little bit of colour in. I want to come just down into this bit here and just make this look a little bit tidier. And I'm going to stick with my terracotta. We're going to come into these dark areas because there is a little bit of oranginess in there. None of the colours that I've used, apart from the black, but none of the colours that I've used are going to cause any issues if you bring another colour in over the top of it. So we're obviously predominantly using these warm orangey colours. We're not going to have any issues going in over the top of these dark areas. You're not going to get like green or anything like that. You're going to be fine. So just coming in here as well. Just starting to kind of build up a little bit more colour in there. It's these areas here, you know, where all of the tufty bits start to happen. And I think a lot of people start to panic and they're like, I don't know how to get that bit. I just don't know. If you just kind of sketch a little bit of something in, just put something in and you make it a bit sketchy. That gives you a little bit of a head start, and then you can start to go, right, well, this bit here is a bit darker, this bit here is a little bit lighter, and then you can start to kind of play around with, you know, some of the fur details in there. So I'm just going to come down here, just going to bring a little bit of that orange in there. You can see I'm just going a little bit sketchy down here. We want that nice softness in the fur. And I haven't used the cream yet, and we will do, which is going to make a big difference. But we're starting to kind of get that nice feeling in the foxy face there. Okay, so I'm going to come back to this area here, but what I want to do is I want to go up and start doing the nose and this little muzzle area, because this is going to happen quite quickly. So I want you to get your dark indigo again. Oops, and it's number 157. Okay, that very dark blue. I tend to use this a lot with things like eyes and noses. It's just a really good color to put underneath blacks, and you do get a lot of the time where you kind of end up with unexpected colors, and you're like, hang on a second, a fox nose isn't blue, but actually the light shining on it makes it look a little bit bluey, and bringing in these unexpected colors can make something look, you know, realistic again. So I'm just going to come in onto the top of the nose again, very gently. So we don't want a big, strong shadow or a big, strong outline around the nose. And the other thing is, this is actually quite a simple little nose, but you can make it complicated if you want, but I would highly recommend that you don't. So just follow the lines. So we've got this little curved line here, which is the bottom of the nose. We've got a little bit of the nostril, which we can see just the side of the nostril here. Okay, side of the nostril there, which is darker. A little bit darker on this edgy bit there. Front of the nose here, just very gently to begin with. We're just going to get the idea of that little nosy in there. Okay, and then we can start to darken it. That's all we need to do with the nose. So it's dead easy. So we're going to come back up to the top of the nose here, and I'm going to go round and round with my pencil. We're just going to strengthen the colour there because it is quite dark. So we're just going to strengthen the colour, just round and round. A sharp pencil is going to be really helpful here. Okay, and then we're just going to go again, just round and round. I know it's quite small, so you can see me turning my pencil now because I want to keep it on the sharpest bit. Pastel matte makes things all look a little bit fuzzy, but you know, we're just going to put up with it. And if it's really fuzzy for you, you can bring one of your lighter pencils in over the top, and that's going to work quite nicely. So if I take my Cold Grey 2, which is number 231, and I just bring this over the top of the nose area here. So can you see how mine's kind of gone a little bit of a weird shape? I'm just going to bring that little bit of the Cold Grey 2 here where it connects to the actual face. I'm going to bring a little bit of the Cold Grey 2 in over the top of. So we're just going to lighten it for a minute, which is going to smooth it out, and it's just going to allow me to add more layers onto there. And then what I want to do is it's kind of turning up a little bit more. It's sort of pointing a little bit more. So I'm just going to add just a little bit to the top there so it's the right shape. It's a bit better. And then I can go with slightly stronger pressure and just fill that in, and then I can come in with the black. I've lost my nostril altogether. To be honest, it doesn't really matter. I don't even need, oh gosh, Maisie's anticipating before I actually do it. The black here. I don't even need to put a nostril in if I don't want to do. I could just leave it literally as that. And then, yeah, just coming in here. So I'm just going to bring a little bit of black in there, and then a little bit of the nostril there, and then that's it. That's the nose done. Vicky's just sent me a message about left-handed artists, and I have a lot of left-handed students, and one of the things that they do is they'll take the image, they'll flip it, They'll do exactly the same as what I'm doing, but they'll start on the other side. So when I'm drawing, they'll draw exactly the same as me, but they'll be drawing a reversed image, and it seems to be able to help them a lot. You know, and it's all about what is going to be the easiest way, you know, for you to draw, and that seems to you know, kind of work. It seems to help them a lot. And of course, some areas are much easier for left-handed artists, and then I struggle with some areas because it would be easier if because you kind of come in on a bit of an angle. Okay, so that's our little nose there. So now we're just going to move into this bit here. And we're going to use, I'm actually going to keep the cold grey too, and then we're going to move, and we're going to get, in our other hand, we're going to have our ash grey. And yeah, just a reminder, this is free. All of the other emails are free. If you signed up, you're going to get them anyway. They're going to land in your inbox. Please make sure that you check your spam folders every day. Email has changed recently, and we now, whatever email provider you have, there's an algorithm which kind of decides what you get and what you don't get. So always check your spam folder. But yeah, you will be receiving 2 emails a week from me, one midweek with some tips, and one next Sunday, the following Sunday, and the Sunday after that with all of the extra parts of this tutorial. So you end up with a whole fox, and it's all free. Okay, cold grey 2, and we're just going to bring that into the little sort of lip area here. And again, I'm just going to go round and round. I can't really see the direction of the fur. Some of you might want to put a little bit more blue in there if you want. There's a sort of like some pale blue that's going on in there. And then I'm going to move over to my ash grey. So the Pablo ash grey, which is number 401. And we're going to bring this in, and then we're going to bring it, this we're going to sort in a minute, but we're just going to bring a little bit of that ash grey into the cold grey. So we're not just stopping with one and then starting with the other. We're just going to kind of merge them together, and we're going to bring that little bit of ash grey into here. If you haven't got ash grey, you can use cold grey 1, just anything that's sort of similar-ish. And we're going to come all the way down here. Nice and gently, so you can see again, I'm just using these backwards and forwards sort of sketchy strokes. I'm looking at my reference photo, I'm looking at the direction of the fur. We can sort of see it coming over the little lip area here. It's starting to kind of come this way, and then it starts to move, the hair gets a little bit longer down here, and then the area under the chin, there's going to be some more colour in there, but I'm just going to put a base of the colour in there. Let me just take a little bit of that, oops, little line out here. This is quite strong. So we're going to bring in some more colours into here, probably some of the Pablo Cocoa into there. So again, I'm using really nice light pressure. The coverage with the Pablo is really good. And you can see how my pencil strokes have completely changed now that I've got under the chin, because the hair is sort of, it looks longer and sort of smoother. So I'm just using pencil strokes that are emulating the hair. Okay, which is great. Now, before we get any further, I'm going to use the dark sepia. Oh, if I can find it. So we're going to use the dark sepia, and we're just going to bring the little mouth area in, okay? And we're going to go kind of in like a little frilly movement, because we want it to look like we've got those little bits of hair coming over the top. Now, a lot of people ask me about this. How do I get, this is like if you're drawing like a collie or something like that, you've got a black and white dog. How do I get the white hairs to stand out over the dark? And how you do it is you actually sketch that kind of the texture in right from the start. So if we start kind of at the end here very gently, and we're just going to kind of bring in, you don't have to make it exactly the same as the photograph, but we're just going to sort of bring in an idea of the hair, how it kind of sits over the top. And that's it. couldn't be easier than that. A little frilly line. So, and then I'm just going to bring a little bit more into there, just nice and gently. Don't try and overdo stuff. Don't try and overcomplicate things. Just try and keep things super, super, super simple. You know, if you're somebody who sort of gets sort of quite overwhelmed with things, just try to keep things as simple as you possibly can. You know, don't try and put all of the details in. Pick just, you know, one kind of thing that you're going to do. I'm just going to concentrate on my colors, or I'm just going to concentrate on the darks and the lights in this particular drawing. You know, just concentrate on kind of making one thing better. I talk about this a lot, you know, in my teaching. We're just looking at 1%. Just think about 1% that you could just make a little bit better. And what inevitably happens is that 1% that you make better is going to have a knock-on effect on all of the other bits of your drawing. So instead of just having 1% of your drawing getting better, you're going to get 10% of your drawing skills getting better. You know, but if you try and make 90% of your drawing better all in one go, you're going to get overwhelmed and likely just kind of fall out of love with drawing, which would be really sad. Okay, so we've got his little chin in there now, sketched in, all looking good. We're going to use, if we get 2 pencils ready, we're going to use the beige, which is number 403. And we're going to use the cocoa, which is number 405. So they look like that. Cocoa is the darker one. And these again are Pablo pencils. Okay. So I'm going to use the beige first, which is number 403. And we're just going to bring some of that beige in on the lower jaw here. We're going to bring it into that darker color, which we are going to make darker, but we're going to use the beige in over the top of it. So the Pablo is going to smooth out that darker polychromos. Oops, that's literally crumbling as we draw. And I'm just going to bring a little bit of that beige in here as well. Now you might be thinking, oh, it's all a little bit too dark. Actually, we need to go way darker in here. The beige has got sort of like a little bit of a browny color to it. Again, we don't have to make it exactly the same as the photograph. I'm just going to bring a little bit of that in there. A little bit of that little chin. And then I'm just going to bring a little bit of the beige into here as well. Just a tiny bit. And just to sort of bring a little bit of structure into the fur here. So we still want to make it look like it's white. But of course, it's not white. It's got quite a lot of colour in here. So I'm just very gently bringing some little fur lines in so it looks textured. And again, just these sort of either single pencil strokes or just sort of backwards and forwards, not everywhere. We're leaving some of that base layer just showing. But we're just bringing a little bit of texture in. So it's just these weeny little marks that make it look furry. Okay, just with that beige. And then I'm just going to come down here. And the worry is, you know, I know people will be sitting there going, Bonnie, it's supposed to be white. Well, once we get everything else in here and we start to look at the fur, I bring this one in. So this is one I made earlier. You know, it still looks really white, but it's actually, there's quite a lot of beige in there. You know, so we don't need to worry too much about that. Oops. And I'm just going to bring a little bit more down into here. Again, we're just going to bring those sort of long curved lines, but not everywhere. So we're just sort of gently bringing in an idea of the texture of the fur. And then we can go slightly darker on the front area of the throat here. We can just go a little bit darker here. And then you can see it just sort of starts to curl off. And then the hair that comes down here starts to just, we've got that lovely curve going through here. Just grab some water. Okay. Right. So let's now just start work on the top of the nose here. So we've got this blocked in. This isn't finished. We're just going to start on the top of the nose here. I just want to bring a little bit more colour into there. Oh, I told you we were going to use the cocoa. Hang on to that. And I'm also going to ask you to get your apricot. So we're going to start with the cocoa, which is number 405. Okay, and we're going to bring that into this little bit around the front of the nose. So I'm just going to very gently, and it's almost like it's radiating out. So it's almost like a little sort of starburst, if you like. So we're just going to create this little fuzzy circle on the edge of the nose there. If it's easier to use single pencil strokes, use single pencil strokes. Whatever is easiest for you. We're just going to bring that through there. Round and round. The whiskers are going to come at the end. Okay. So that's all good. A little bit kind of coming out. So you want these little sort of stray bits of stronger colour coming out. So it is this sort of poking out over the top of that lighter bit here. So you don't want just a big, strong blob. You want it to kind of look part of, you want it to look soft. Okay. And next I'm going to take my apricot. You can see these aren't particularly sharp. Next I'm going to take my apricot. And the apricot is number 041. I love this colour. It's brilliant. And we're just going to bring this in over the top of the colours that we've got here. So we've got some of the apricot that's going to kind of shine through, and then we're going to bring those colours back in again and darken them. And we're just going to kind of work on this little eye again. So starting on the bridge of the nose here, just gently, gently sweeping that apricot in along the bridge of the nose area. So not a big, strong, straight line, but we're just sweeping that colour in. And then we're going to sweep it in, or just kind of use round pencil strokes around this area here. Just going to bring a little bit into there as well. Just want to just be careful with the blue that you don't bring it too much into the blue, because then it'll turn green because you've got a lot of yellow in this apricot. And we're just going to sweep this into here. This is then going to soften and blend all of the colour that's underneath here. It's going to make it look a little bit more orangey, but then we're going to come back in and we're going to darken all of that colour again. Okay, so I'm just going to come down onto the bottom here. Gently, gently, and then up. Just going to sweep it back up here. Really gently. You don't want to be using hard pressure here at all. That nice, gentle pressure. It's going to bring a little bit in the eye there. It might help if you sharpen yours. I'm a bit lazy when it comes to sharpening my pencils. Okay, and then I'm just going to bring a little bit of that apricot through into the top of the head here as well. Nice and gently. A little bit on the top of the eye. Even if you're using a hot press paper, you're still going to be able to bring these lighter colours in over the top, and they will make a difference. Okay. And we can see it's really starting to take shape now. So I want to darken this bit here again, and I want to darken a little bit around the eye. So we're going to use the Caput Mortuum Violet again, which is number 263. And we're just going to come back into here. Now I'm going to hold my pencil a little bit nearer the point. You can see it's got a really long point there. And I'm just now going to start to be more precise with where I'm actually putting my pencil, where I'm putting the colour. But I'm still using quite light pressure, but very small pencil strokes. And the very small pencil strokes and the sharp pencil mean that I'm getting into all of the tooth. Okay. So I'm getting into all of that tooth, and I'm getting a much stronger coverage with my pencil. Now, a lot of the time, what happens when people are drawing, your pencil strokes are a little bit too broad. Okay. which means that you can end up with things looking a little bit more grainy, or your color maybe isn't quite as dense as you'd like. So if you're finding that your color's a little bit light, or you're getting quite a lot of grain coming through, make your pencil strokes really small. Now, the con with that is that you can actually end up with quite achy hands if you're doing quite a large area that's got, you know, you're using very small pencil strokes. Because you're using these tiny, tiny little movements, you can end up with a little bit of an aching hand, especially if you end up gripping your pencil really tightly. So, you know, just be aware of that. And if you feel your hand kind of getting a bit crampy, or you feel it getting a little bit sore, stop, kind of do some hand movements, you know, open your hand up, do some hand stretches, because the last thing you want to do is end up with like sore hands, sore wrist, all of that kind of thing. And it's one of the reasons why I love Pastel Mat, because I can use light pressure all the way through, or at least up to medium pressure. So I'm just going to coming up to this bit here with his nose, and just darkening that little bit there. So we're kind of getting these almost like these little whiskery marks here. And then I'm going to bring my Caput Mortuum Violet again. I'm going to use lighter pressure, very light pressure. So this would be classed as glazing. It's where you're using very light pressure of a different color in over the top of other colors. I call that glazing. It's like a wash or something like that. So you're having an effect on the layers below, but you're not having a dramatic effect where you're, you know, changing the color considerably. You're just bringing in a little bit of extra something. And then I'm just going to very gently bring around the eye here as well. So we're getting just slightly stronger in there. Sorry, I've got pencil dust at the back of my throat now, which is what's making me sort of cough and my voice going a bit funny. Okay, so look how much better that now looks with that little bit of colour in there and that little bit of sort of depth. And then I'm going to come back underneath his eye here. I'm just going to grab some water. Okay, I'm going to bring a little bit more of this Caput Mortuum Violet down underneath the eye. Again, looking at the direction of the fur and just looking at where I can bring in some of these little sort of fur details, if you like. I am going to bring the black in, and I'm going to darken this. And then I'm going to come down into here as well. So the Caput Mortuum Violet in over the top of your oranges works really, really well. And what you can do is you can end up with sort of like these recipes that you can either keep in a book or in your head, or, you know, what makes a really good orange, you know, if I'm drawing like a chestnut horse or an orangey coloured, tanny coloured dog, you know, what colours can I mix together to get those, you know, colours that work. And the Caput Mortuum Violet with the orange works really well. The other colour that isn't particularly pretty, but we should all be adding into our orangey coloured animals drawings is, of course, and we're going to use that in a second, is the raw umber or the brown ochre. Really, really important to add those greeny browny colours into your drawings because it balances everything out. I'm going to keep going with my Caput Mortuum Violet here. I'm just going to bring a little bit more into the area just above the top of the eye here, just a little bit more into here. A little bit more into there. Just bring some of these little areas. Don't go crazy with the darker colour. You know, we're not sort of colouring everything in. We're just bringing these little areas of fur detail, you know, so that it looks like there's fur there. And the more layers you create, the softer it will be and the less grainy it will be. But if you look at my drawings, there's still grain coming through. There's still the paper coming through. It's not a problem. You know, don't worry if you can see some of the tooth. You know, we're creating art, we're creating drawings. So, you know, it's not like we have to have everything, you know, disappearing. It doesn't have to be sort of like a big shiny, you know, glossy finished piece. you know, unless that's what your aim is. And then, of course, you know, there are things that you can do to sort of help that. So, okay. So now what I want to do is bring a little bit of that raw umber in. It's not a pretty colour. The other one that I was talking about is not on the list. So this is the raw umber and this is the brown ochre. So the raw umber here is the one that I'm going to be using. The brown ochre you can see is just a little bit lighter. They're not pretty colours at all, but they are really, really, really key for your orangey animals. So I'm going to take my raw umber and I'm going to bring some of that into the orange. And what it's going to do is it's just going to tone things a little bit. It's just going to balance things, because if you don't include colours like this, what will happen is everything will look too pink, too orange, too red. So using your greeny browns like your raw umbers or your brown ochres are going to really help to balance everything out. You know, it's not going to end up with your fox looking green or anything like that. You're just going to end up with really well balanced colours. So just put a little bit in there. I'm going to bring a little bit up onto here, to the top here. We want the connection between our colours, so we don't want our blocks of colours to stop and then start again. So where you've got a colour, always bring it into the other. Very gently, just smush it into the other. And I'm just going to come around here again, bring a little bit of the raw umber down into here. I'm going to bring a little into here as well. It's not a strong colour. If I use it nice and gently, it's just going to come on really nicely. Just coming in down here. I can't think of anything nicer to do. Can you on a Sunday afternoon? And do you know what is absolutely wonderful? This time next week, I'm going to be teaching in the Caribbean. How amazing is that? My first ever teaching on a cruise. I can't quite believe it, to be honest. I'm really, really, really excited about it. So yeah, so it's going to be the same again. I'm not drawing a fox, I'm drawing a horse, but we're going to be at sea, because it's like, what craziness. Okay, so I'm going to come up into here. I'm going to get our little brush out in a minute, and I'm just going to show you how we can use a little brush just to soften things. And I'm going to use my raw umber to create some of these little sort of shadowy areas in here as well. So again, I'm just going backwards and forwards. We're going to bring a lighter colour in too in a second, but just kind of, you know, showing you how easy it is, or how not easy, but it's not a complicated process. If you get your layers down, then you know, your shadows then become much simpler to create. I'm not going to say easy, because that's not fair, because nothing's easier if you don't know how to do it. You know, but I want to show you that it's not a really, really, really difficult process. You know, if you can think sort of a few basics. Okay, so get your base layers down. Think about the lightest colours you can see, and your base layers are going to be those lightest colours. Then start to build in a little bit of shape and form. So if you're drawing an animal, that means like cheekbones, you know, around the eye, that kind of thing. And then keep layering your colours in, so that you're starting to get a little bit more smoothness in there. Always keep a light pressure, or a lightish pressure if you can. I know some people are naturally more heavy-handed, you know, and actually it doesn't matter. You'll find your way, and heavy-handed is not a bad thing. And then always draw in the direction of the fur. If you're drawing fur, draw in the direction of the growth if you can see it. And just don't panic. Just have a lovely time. You know, get some good music going, or you know, an audio book or a film or something. I tend to listen to Harry Potter all of the time, but I also have like a gooseneck holder that I got from Amazon, and I can put my phone on there and I can have a film playing, but I only ever have films playing that I've already watched about 3 million times. And then I can disappear into my drawing and then pick up the film, you know, and I don't feel I've missed anything. But, you know, just just enjoy what you're doing. And what's amazing about being creative, painting, drawing, anything like that, is that as soon as you start to do it, you just let go and everything in your head just disappears. You know, and if you've got a load of rubbish going on in your life, just being creative allows you to just be without that rubbish for, you know, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, you know, whatever. In my case, you know, 6 hours at a time, because I just love how it makes me feel, you know. So those are my top tips. Right, let's get onto that little paintbrush. So it doesn't matter what kind of a paintbrush you've got. Mine is quite a soft one. It's actually it's what I bought when I was doing some oil painting, and it's a Rosemary & Co. Filbert Zero. Please don't feel you have to have the same one. You can see it's quite small. If I hold it next to the tip of the pencil, you can see it's little tiny one. Okay, and it's soft. So if I splodge it onto my, you can see it sort of, that's what it does. And that's the movement we're going to do. We're not going to brush, because if we brush, the pigment is actually going to brush off the surface. And you're going to get pencil dust and everything everywhere. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take the brush. If you haven't got a brush, don't worry, you can use a cotton bud. You can even use, I've even used an old t-shirt with my finger in part of the thing and just kind of dabbed. So I'm just going to take my brush, and what I want to do is I want to soften along the top of the head here. So I'm literally just going to take my brush and I'm just going to drop it onto the surface and let the bristles just splodge. That's all I'm doing. I'm just plonking and splodging. Those are technical terms. Bonnie's plonking and splodging techniques, but that's all you need to do. And what it will do is it will just sort of spread out the pigment a little bit. We've used just hard, dry pencils today. And the hard, dry pencils are fantastic on pastel mat because they move around. The pigment sits on top and it just moves around, and it's you know, it's great. So we're just plonking and splodging just like that. And you can just gently let your fox hair become a little bit softer. So anywhere where you think, oh, I just need that a little bit softer, you can just dab it. That's probably a better word, dab, rather than plonk and splodge. But if you sweep, if you brush, you're going to brush your colour off. So, you know, if I was going to brush there, it's going to just brush it off. I can come into here again. I can just splodge there and just let everything just be a little bit softer. We can come into the ear, do the same in the ear. Watch that you're not using it on really strong pigment, because it could bring that pigment through and kind of put it somewhere else. But that's worked really nicely. And then again, we can start to build the fur back up again. Before we go any further, I just want to sort this eye out. Yours might be lovely. Mine, I'm not very happy with. So I'm just going to get my black again. And you can see on the top of mine, I just need that little bit of an eyelid on the top there. So I'm just going to pull that back in and just bring that little bit of the eyelid in, just make it a little bit taller. If you're looking at yours and going, actually, I'm really happy with my eye, don't touch it. Just leave your eye as it is. But with mine, I just need to bring, it just wants a little bit, it's almost like eyeliner, isn't it? Just wants a little bit more of that darkness around it. That's a lot better. Can you see how that's just changed the eye a lot just by bringing that little bit of the top bit up there? I'm not a tweaker particularly. I'm just going to bring a little bit of black down into here as well. So once I've finished something, I tend to go, right, that's it, finished. But sometimes you do just need to just tweak something, particularly when you're adding the layers in and you just need to get to, you know, you just need to sort of change things up a little bit. So I'm just going to bring a little bit of that black. Now, Polychromos black, my favorite black, because I can really control what I'm doing with it. Okay. I don't have much control in my life. So if I can control my pencils, my dogs are all uncontrollable. But if I can just control my pencils a little bit, I like that. And I think that's why I like my Polychromos, because I really can control them. But I like the black, the Polychromos black, because it's kind of a little bit more translucent compared to other blacks. So you class it as quite a weak black. It's not a very strong black at all. but it means that I can go over the top of other colours and just darken them slightly. Plus, it's really, really fabulous for eyes because you can kind of see through the layers a little bit. Right, let's come back down to his little mouth down here. I'm going to use the, what am I going to use? I think I'm going to use the cocoa again. Not again, because I don't think we used it to begin with, did we? And I'm just going to bring a little bit of this brown down into here. So we're just going to, again, you can see I've just shifted my hand up the pencil a little bit, so I've got much more control over it rather than down here. I've got much more control when I shift it up near the end of the point. And I'm just going to, we'll probably bring a little bit of walnut brown into here as well, and maybe even some black. And I just want to start to darken this so that we have some areas that are definitely finished. Okay, just bring a little bit of that in there. A little bit of that in there. Cocoa, Pablo. It's quite a unique colour, where you don't have quite all. Unique is unique. It's not quite all, but it is a unique colour. And the thing with pencils is that each sort of pencil set has got their own kind of range of colours. Some of them are pretty similar. In fact, the majority of pencils you can get something, you know, pretty similar, you know. So if you've got sort of like, you like using Prismas or something like that, you can get something that's pretty similar. And I have now got my own conversion chart, which is really exciting. That was a very exciting project to work on, you know. So that, and it gives you, what are the pencils on it? Polychromos, Luminance, Pablo, Lightfast, Prisma, and Castle Arts. So I've chosen Castle Arts as my sort of really budget pencil because they're good quality and you can get a ton of them for not an awful lot of money. You know, so if you are just starting out, they're quite a good pencil to get. They don't sell them in singles, unfortunately, but they're, you know, they're good quality and you get a lot of really great information coming through. So down here, I'm also going to bring a little bit of this cocoa in again, just to sort of bring more of that structure and fur detail coming in down here. And then now what I want to do is use my walnut brown. So the walnut brown is 177. And I'm just going to come, you can see where it gets a little bit browny down here. I'm just going to bring a little bit of that. So I'm just these single pencil strokes, nice and gently. We've already got a few layers on there, so it should work quite well. You can even bring a little bit of orange into there as well, actually. And I'm going to bring a little bit of that brown into here too. What you might find is once you've got a few layers on, you might need to just increase your pressure slightly, you know, to get the colour to actually lay down. You know, and it might start to feel a little bit different. It'll start to feel a little bit more smooth than when you first started. Okay, and I'm going to bring some of these little areas up here as well. A really nice trick as well for drawing shadows is going in the opposite direction of your hair growth. So it almost feels like you're going up and underneath the fur. And then again, if they end up being a little bit too strong, you just bring your little paintbrush in and then just dab it, smudge it out a bit, or you can just take your kneadable eraser and just go, oh yeah, don't want them that. It's quite nice that they're there a little bit, but I don't need them that strong. So nothing's ever a mistake. You know, I make mistakes all of the time, but I never rub anything out and go, oh goodness, I've done that wrong. I just incorporate it into what I'm doing. You know, and a lot of the time, you know, it's like the Bob Ross, it ends up being a happy accident. I'm like, oh, I'm really glad that happened, because actually, you know, if it hadn't, I wouldn't have ended up with what I've got now. Okay, a little bit of black into the mouth area. And I'm just going to use like a technique where you're going to pop the pencil on the surface and you're just going to just lift it off. So it adds these almost like these little spots of colour. So it'll just darken and it'll just add gentle bits of colour, but it won't feel like you've got this big, strong black line there. So you just drop your pencil on and just lift it up, and it's almost like a little bit of a flick up. And that way, what's not going to happen is you're not going to end up with this big black solid line. You're just going to have these gentle little sort of flicky marks, which is great. Good. Okay. So now, I mean, we've obviously still got a long way to go, but I think what we've got here, I think, is really nice. And some of you will want to carry on, which I would really encourage you to do. Also, if you're a member of my colour pencil group, you know, you can get help in there. Just pop your pictures in there and ask your questions, and you're going to get tons of help in there for carrying on. Or what you might want to do is, oh, sorry, we're just going to move on to the Caput Mortem Violet in a second. Oh, I've got a cat hair in my mouth. Or you might want to wait until next Sunday and do the next instalment with me, which you're very welcome to do. But like I say, you're going to get the first part that I've already pre-recorded sent to you tomorrow, which has got a little bit further down on the neck. So I'm going to take my Caput Mortem Violet, and I'm just going to start to bring a little bit more of this darker colour into here. So again, we're going to use that glazing technique, nice and gently, just darkening up the area and the layers. So we're starting to get this really nice structure, so that the fox is starting to look 3D. And this is sort of like the magic sauce, really, the secret sauce. Or it's not secret, but you know what I mean. This is where the magic starts to happen, where you start to build all of these little tiny nuances in, you know, that shows the structure of the fox's face, and it makes everything sort of stand out a little bit more. And it's what is going to make your drawings look really real. And you know, if you concentrate on these little elements of sort of pockets of slightly darker fur, those are going to be your details. Not trying to draw every single fur stroke. And it's as you progress with your colour pencil drawing, you'll start to realise just how important these little areas are. So I think there's almost like a process. You start off, and the thing that you're sort of most concerned about is colour. Then when you kind of, you know, get to grips with the colour areas and you're like, oh, actually, this isn't so bad. Then what happens is you start to then really concentrate on details. So then everything that you do will be sort of super highly detailed. Then you'll get to a point where you're like, hang on a second, I don't think that my details are actually that important. What is really, really important is that I get the structure in and I look at my values, and my values are the different strengths of dark and light. So you get the really light values, which are your highlights, your lightest lights. You get your really dark values, which are your shadows, your darkest darks. And you get the bits in between, which are the midtones. And then you get a whole spectrum of little sort of subtle changes. And once you kind of realize that details aren't that important, but your values are, your drawing is going to take an enormous development leap. It's just going to be, you're just going to be kind of, you know, yeah, kind of a stratospheric leap once you realize that your values are what's most important. But you've got to kind of go through the whole process before you get there. Some people do it in a matter of months, that they go through all of that process. Some people, it's going to take you, you know, 12 months. Some people, it's going to take, you know, a couple of years. It's all very much dependent on how often you draw, and actually how not how willing you are to change things up, but how you sort of plan your drawings and recognize where you need to sort of make some changes. But you know, certainly when I was drawing, it was sort of like a couple of months, and I was like, oh, hang on a second, this is now really important. And then I've just worked on that, you know, over the years. So, and it's not something that you ever get to the top of the tree and you're like, yeah, this is it now. I'm the best I'm ever going to be, because you just keep going round in a circle. You just keep learning new stuff, which is what is absolutely amazing. So, and that's why we never, ever, ever aim for perfection, ever, because you're never going to get there. So there's no point disappointing yourself by aiming for perfection, because it doesn't exist. What we're aiming for is joy. What we're aiming for is just having a really lovely time and, you know, getting out of our heads. That's what we're aiming for. Okay. Oh gosh, we're nearly finished. I can't believe it. I'm gonna keep going a little bit longer. I don't want to keep you all from your tea. Vicky said that she wants me to talk about pencil sharpeners. I have 3 pencil sharpeners. I have an electric one, which I absolutely flipping love, because I'm such a lazy person, and it's just amazing to be able to just shove your pencil in and it's sharp. I have a little handheld sharpener. It's the Cum Magnesium. And that's a really awesome little pencil sharpener, because that's the one that my tricky pencils, I use for my tricky pencils, you know, the ones that break all of the time, because it's a little bit gentler and I can just use it in there. And then I also have my Derwent Super Point, and it gives exactly what it says on the tin. The Derwent Super Point gives a super point. But also what it does is, which annoys the heck out of me, is it chews all my pencils up. Can you see those little chew marks? I need to get in touch with Derwent and tell them to put padding on it for our precious pencils. And then people are like, oh, has your cat had your pencil? I'm like, no, it's my pencil sharpener, because it's one of those crank ones. But you can use, you know, use whatever you want to use. You know, some people like to use a knife and use a knife to sharpen. But those are the 3 that I have and that I use on a regular basis. I have to say the Super Point is really good. It takes a little bit of time to sort of obviously stop, put it into the crank, then go back, and you know, whereas my electric one's literally here, and all I do is just shove my pencil in it and it's sharp. And I love that. Okay, so still with the Caput Mortem Violet, we're just gently pulling out some of these darker areas. So gently, just sort of wafting around, picking away at our colours in here. I just want to show you a little bit of how the lighter colours work over the top of the dark if you're using pastel matte. So I'm just going to choose my cream. So this is the Pablo cream, and it's number 491. Okay. I've chosen the Pablo just because it's just a little bit, it's better at going over the top of stuff. But say I want to just lighten some of the fur up underneath the eye here, I literally just come on over the top and I just use it over the top, and it just lightens everything up like it's a little bit of a magic pencil. Now, you're not going to get this if you're using hot press paper, smooth paper, or drafting film. Drafting film, you'll be able to use your eraser, you'll be able to use your slice tool. Hot press paper, you need to keep isolated. So you need to keep your highlights isolated, free of colour, or use an eraser. So I'm just going to bring my little bit of the lighter colour in over here. Just lightening this bit up here as well. You don't have to. If you're looking at your fox and going, I love my fox, it looks great, you don't need to do anything. This is me just sort of showing you how you can just lighten and smooth at the same time. You might not want to use the cream. You might want to use something more like the orangish yellow, which again is we can bring a little bit more of that into here. You can see I'm just going backwards and forwards, just getting a nice bit. I've got this line along the top of my fox's ear here, which is irritating, but we'll be able to sort that out, I think. And the other nice thing as well is that we can get these little sort of hairy bits coming over as well. As you build your layers, you'll be able to get these little bits of hair. Can you see how that's now starting to look really nice and fluffy? Down here as well, once I start to build these layers a little bit more, we can actually get these little fluffy bits coming out over the top. So I think what we'll do is we'll just bring another little bit of the orangish yellow in. I'm just going to pull a little bit of that in there. Let's bring a little bit of the orangish yellow in, which is number 031. And I'm just going to bring a little bit more of this. Again, I can pull it in over the top of the other colours. you know, where we just need it to be just a little bit brighter, just a little bit more yellowy. Coming in through here, coming in onto the face there. Don't forget, look at the quality of your fur. Is it fluffy? Is it straight? Is it dense? Is it, you know, what's the quality of the fur? And then try to move your pencil like you would think that fur feels, which sounds like a really weird thing to say, but that's how I work it out in my head. I know not everybody thinks like me, but if I see fluffy fur, I'm going to draw fluffy. If I see smooth fur, I'm going to draw smooth. If I see really dense fur, I'm going to draw dense. So, you know, think of it as how would it feel, and how would my pencil feel if I was actually drawing on top of the fox? And this is all kind of how I've sort of, you know, built my techniques and my skills and everything with colour pencil, is very much about how I feel. I know not everybody, you know, thinks the same as me, but that's why I prefer certain pencils, because it's a bit like the Princess and the Pea. You know, I can feel everything through my pencil. So I can feel how it feels on the surface. I can feel how it feels over the top of other colours. And that's why I prefer the harder, drier pencils, because I've just got a little bit more control over them. You know, and they just feel better. Whereas the softer ones are a bit claggy, which is, I think, probably a Yorkshire term, but they just feel sort of sticky, and I can't kind of control them as well. Not that I'm a controlling person, but I like to control my pencils. Right, last thing we're going to do is bring the walnut brown into here, and then we're going to finish, and I'm going to come and say goodbye, and then we're all going to go and have our tea. Well, those in the UK are going to go and have our tea. Those in Australia are going to go back to bed. Okay, so I'm just going to darken up down here. And again, I'm just going to go round and round for this sort of fluffy fur that's coming in on the base of the ear here, just round and round, so that we're getting a little bit of that fluff coming through. And we've still got a little bit of that yellow showing as well. So we're not obliterating that colour. We're just kind of letting it kind of shine through a little bit. And then you'll be able to access this probably within a matter of minutes, I would have thought, maybe an hour, something like that. Just click on the same link that you joined this draw from, and you'll get into the recording. And then tomorrow you'll get an email with the recording. It will be on a landing page, I think, and you'll also get the first part of the recording that I've already recorded, which might be sort of slightly different how I've drawn it, and it's got some extra bit on the neck, so you'll be able to get all of that done in there. I'm just going to put this little bit of where he's got his little whisker in there. Just going to put that in. And again, I'm just going to just soften that a little bit. So just dab it with my kneadable eraser so it's not quite in your face. And then just any other little tweaky bits in there. And I'd say we're pretty much there with this area. So don't forget, you've got the whole of the fox that's going to be coming. I'm going to bring it over, actually. Let me just bring this over here. I'm going to show it. Oh, I've got all sorts of muck on this poor fox. Right, let's take that. Oops, take that away. Oh, Maisie's doing it, and I'm doing the wrong thing. Let's take this solo away. Oh, there I am, and I'm going to put me as solo here. Hello, everybody. So this is the one. Excuse all of the little. I don't know whether you can see them, but this is what you're going to end up with. Okay. So you're going to get all of the tutorials to be able to do the whole thing, and they're going to come out next Sunday, the Sunday after, and the Sunday after that. Please don't forget to sign up for the extra session, because you're going to be able to come in, ask your questions. You can bring your drawing with you. You can kind of show me and get some help. And then I also want you to save the date, because very excitingly, some of you were in it last year. We're doing Coloured Pencil Week again in May, which I'm really excited about. And this is going to be like the most amazing event, because it's all about wildlife, and it's just going to be fantastic. So save the date, 9th of May, 9th to the 16th of May, Coloured Pencil Week. And I just want to thank you all so much for joining me this afternoon. There's so many of you from all over the world. It's been just an absolute joy. My favorite thing to do is to sit and draw and talk. I've had a lovely time. I can't wait to see your foxes in the group and in on social media. If you want to tag me in it on your social media, you can I think you can tag me, Bonny Snowdon Academy, but you can also use the hashtag, let's call it Bonny's Fluffy Fox Drawing. Bonny's Fluffy Fox sounds a bit weird, doesn't it? Bonny's Fluffy Fox Drawing, or Fluffy Fox Drawing, something like that, and we'll find it. But looking forward to seeing all of these in our colour pencil group anyway. And just thank you all so much for turning up, being creative, having a lovely time, hopefully. And hopefully I'll see you all very soon. But look out for your emails. One coming on Wednesday, one coming next Sunday. Got some tips in there, so check your spam, all of that kind of thing, and don't forget to sign up for the 8th of April. Irene's just saying details. My eraser is a Swordfish multi-point, my electric one, Swordfish multi-point. It's fabulous. I love it. So thank you all so much for joining me. I've loved it. Can't wait to see your foxes, and I'll see you all very soon. Okay, bye.